Good morning, everyone. The meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents, Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee is called to order, and we're in public session. We're going to start off the executive session for legal advice, discussion, and direction to designated representatives regarding the items on the executive session agenda. Once executive session is over, we will reconvene for the public session agenda in the turquoise room. Do I have a motion to convene into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Regents, as a reminder, we are in a hybrid executive. We're in the hybrid session, so we want to use the Zoom number for the executive session. If you don't have the number, please contact Suzanne. Thank you, and we will reconvene in the executive session. Good morning, everyone. We're now reconvening the public session of the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee. I will ask staff to confirm we have a quorum. Thank you, Suzanne. Well, we have a full agenda today, which includes review of 2 coaching contracts, review of 3 capital improvement plans, review of 2 capital development plans, ASU's Novus annual report, 2 University of Arizona leases, and a first reading on proposed policy for component unit affiliates. Please remember that only member of the committee can provide a second to a motion and can vote on a motion. Our first item is the approval of the minutes from our prior meeting. I ask members and regents if you have any questions or comments related to the minutes. Seeing none, I move the committee approve the public and executive session minutes from the May 27, 2021 Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Our item number 2 is a review of the University of Arizona's request for a multiple-year employment agreement for Chip Hale as head baseball coach. This is an action item, and President Robbins and Mr. Dave Hickey on Zoom will present the item.
Chair Mata, I'm assuming Dave will magically come. There he
Yes,
is.
there it is.
If not, I was ready. I was warming up in the bullpen.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, Chair Mata and President Robbins. It's good to be with the group and really pleased to have this opportunity to present a multi-year employment agreement for our new head baseball coach, Chip Hale. Really an outstanding individual. I couldn't be more excited to bring this type of a caliber of a baseball person to our program, continue to provide leadership of a program of excellence, one of the premier baseball programs in the country. Over 30 years of experience at the professional level, was an outstanding player as well here at the University of Arizona. One of our all-time great players, was part of the key member of the 1986 national championship team. Continues to hold numerous playing records. After college, went on to play successfully with the Minnesota Twins and the Los Angeles Dodgers. He has an extensive coaching career in Major League Baseball at all levels of on-field managing and coaching, single A, double A, triple A, and the major leagues. A couple of highlights, was the manager of the Tucson Sidewinders, a triple A franchise who won the championship, was named manager of the year. He was the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks for 2 seasons in 2016 and 17, and as well was the lead assistant for the Washington Nationals when they won the World Championship. Most recently was the Detroit Tigers, and has been with a series of major league teams. Been with some of the best players around, an outstanding technical coach, an outstanding baseball mind. We're again thrilled. Could not have a more talented individual to lead our program. We've outlined the components of the contract, and look forward to the review and hopeful recommendation for approval. With that, I'll take any questions or provide any further clarification for the group.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval the multi-year employment agreement for University of Arizona head baseball coach Chip Hill as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Our next item, number 3, is the review of ASU multi-year employment contract for head baseball head coach Willie Bloomquist. We will have President Crow and Mr. Ray Anderson presenting this item.
Yes, Chair Amata, thank you for the opportunity to advance Coach Bloomquist's contract to the board for consideration. Coach Bloomquist is a person coming out of a deep history with ASU baseball as both a player and a high achiever, as well as a professional sports career, both as a player and as an administrator. And so we're looking forward to his role as a coach. The contract that we put in place reflects the logic of ASU, which is to offer high incentive-based contracts, low salaries given the overall, modest salaries, I should say, given the overall trend in college baseball these days. That logic then means that we have incentivized at multiple levels the coach's performance. And also in an unusual way, we have a preemptive retention modality for high achievement. For instance, if Coach Bloomquist's team, if the Sun Devils make it to the College World Series, he would receive a spot bonus for that achievement, but also a salary increase as a function of that, as an incremental way of preemptively working to retain the coach now that he has achieved a certain kind of status. And so that's a new component that we put into the project, or put into the contract this year. And then we also have, in addition to performance-based bonus athletically, there are performance-based bonuses for the team's academic performance, both related to grade point achievement and graduation. On page 3 of 5 of the proposed contract, it should say it's not the total bonus for either or those achievements. It would be half if you achieve one and half if you achieve the others, and we can make that editorial change in that contract, which I think clarifies that a little bit better. And so we're very excited about bringing on Coach Bloomquist. Baseball is a high tradition sport at ASU. It has its own mark. The A and the S match together. It's got multiple World Series championships in the decades of the past, and we're looking to achieve that status of competitiveness again in the future. So, Madam Chair, that's where we are with Coach Bloomquist's contract.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Regent Manson?
Thank you. I just wanted to say I appreciate the 2 questions that I had you have addressed. I wondered if we've never seen kind of what looked a little bit like double dipping initially in terms of a salary increase for an athletic performance along with a single bonus. And I was wondering if it was kind of an incentive, a long-term incentive to stay based on athletic performance. I also appreciate the clarification on the kind of untying of the GPA and the GSR, because I do believe that they are different. They're different cohorts and different activities. So I appreciate both of those. Those clarified the 2 questions that I had.
Madam Chair, Regent Manson, we should have been clearer on the second item. And on the first item, it's part of the continued honing of our model. So if we're as successful as we hope that Coach Bloomquist can be, we'd like him to stay. So we'd like to see what that incentive structure is for staying going forward, including his base salary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Seeing none hands, we'll move to this. Okay, I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval the multi-year employment contract for Arizona State University's head baseball coach, Willie Bloomquist, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
I have a discussion point because it needs to be as discussed amended.
Okay, so
So the motion needs to be approval as amended per the discussion.
I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval, the multi-year employment contract for Arizona State University's head baseball coach Bloomquist as amended
Further discussion.
per discussion. So do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We have item number 4, which is the review of the ASU, NAU, and U of A fiscal year 2023-2025 capital improvement plans, which are due to the governor and legislature by October 15. We will have each university present their plans, and we will start first with ASU, followed by NAU, and then by U of A. I will have Morgan Olsen. Please provide your remarks for ASU. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I will focus my comments with respect to our capital improvement plan around the first year projects that we'll be working on at the latter part of this current fiscal year 2022 and into fiscal year 2023. The CIP, as was mentioned, is statutorily required. It's a pretty comprehensive document. In addition to capital projects, includes a lot of information about our built infrastructure, all of our buildings, our leases, both as a lessor, as a lessee, about our status with respect to accumulated deferred maintenance, the building renewal formula, et cetera. But materials are in your book. Happy to answer a question about any of it, but I will focus largely on our projects. So the first project that we have in our first year of the CIP is a classroom office building. That will be a replacement facility. Some of you are familiar with Wilson Hall, which was built in 1956 as a residence hall. It has since been repurposed as a not really that great academic office building. It's in the heart of the campus, actually just immediately to our west here, if we were to walk outside. It's really kind of reached the end of its useful life. And so as part of our overall master planning, we are going to replace that facility with a new building. Wilson Hall is just about 34,000 square feet. The new building will be substantially larger, about 178,000 gross square feet, 5 floors above grade. And it's really important as part of a longer term strategy because it will allow us to be a little more dense in the core where we need to be. And we'll create some flexibilities that will then allow us to address other buildings that are also quite important. You know, we need the space with our growing campus, but they're also old and tired and no longer appropriate programmatically. So this sort of is the key that unlocks the door and allows us to take a number of steps that we're planning over the next roughly decade. So we'll co-locate our Stanford School of Social and Family Dynamics and the School of Social Transformation in this new building in about 3 years. We'll also locate our sales or student accessibility and inclusive learning department there. We'll have lots of university classrooms. We also, because it is the core of campus, are going to have to replace a lot of aging tunnel utility infrastructure, about 1,000 linear feet. It's actually quite expensive, but again, is something that's necessary to sort of renew our oldest campus. The project will be about $107 million in terms of our preliminary planning here. We'll come back to you obviously later. And we funded with system revenue bonds that will amortize over the long term, probably 30 years. Be funded with tuition, the payments on the bonds. Our second, third, and fourth and fifth projects, 4 different projects, are what we like to call our bundles. So one of the challenges the board has talked about is that we do not have a long-term consistent source of funding for the renewal and replacement of our built environment. Many states for public education do have a funding mechanism, oftentimes provided by the state. We don't have that, and so what we tend to do as a replacement is we borrow money and we pay that back over time so that we can do building and infrastructure enhancements and modifications. That's the first bundle. That one's about $20 million. Classroom and academic renovations, that's $15 million. We think it will allow us to renovate about 44,000 gross square feet of facilities based on our projection of cost per square foot. Classroom and academic space. Laboratory renovations, that's both research laboratories and teaching laboratories. We think that'll address about 32,000 gross square feet of existing research labs and support spaces. Wet and dry labs, infrastructure and building systems. Those systems are pretty intensive typically for wet laboratories, and so it's complicated and expensive. It'll also address, HVAC and MEP systems, gas lines, life safety upgrades, et cetera. That's a $20 million bundle. And then finally, and this is one that we have identified and added to this strategy in the last 5 years, is IT infrastructure. And so, IT has become critical to everything we do, leveraging IT, certainly in our teaching and learning and our research, but also in terms of what we do with almost every facet of the campus. The folks who maintain the grounds, prepare the food, et cetera, all driven by IT these days. And so we have a series of improvements that we've identified, 3 of them. The first one is network infrastructure and capacity, critically important to our teaching, learning, and research mission. Research and high-performance computing, same thing. And finally, building automation, telemetry, and energy management. We have over 27 million gross square feet of built environment at ASU. We have to be efficient in terms of the way that we manage that infrastructure. This type of IT infrastructure allows us to do that, leveraging technology. So that bundle is almost 37 million, again, funded with revenue bonds and amortized over, we think, about 20 years. The 6th project on our list in the CIP first year is a Mill Avenue parking structure. That's obviously here on this Tempe campus. We are going to be constructing a multi-level parking structure to replace existing surface lot capacity. Many of you are familiar with the intersection of Mill and University, the southeast corner of that very busy intersection, acquired probably 40 to 45 years ago by the university for development. Here we are, decades later, finally doing it, amazingly enough. So we have in place our lifetime learning facility, the Mirabella. Next to that, under construction now, is our Omni Hotel and Conference Center project. Both of those are public-private developments. The southern part of that parcel we will use for this parking structure, replacing all that surface parking we used to have, more efficient in an urban setting. And then we also expect that we'll build an additional institutional building there. I'll say more about those things later. But this parking structure will be about 1,200 spaces. We'll have the infrastructure that we need to build a thermal energy storage system underneath that. So again, efficient use of expensive space, a new district utility plant, and then we think we will probably end up doing an urban wrap on the parking structure so that we have an activated edge along Mill Avenue. That would be both institutional space and potentially some retail or office tenant space. The last 2 projects I'll just mention quickly. The central utility plant is on the Polytechnic campus. Probably many of you remember that is the old Williams Air Force Base. It was a great Air Force base, but a 20th century Air Force base and all of its infrastructure is not really what we need for a 21st century modern university. And so we're now at a point where, as we expand that campus, and I'll be talking more about that when we talk about the CDP, is going to need some investment. And part of that is making sure that we can do heating and cooling and domestic hot water for that campus. So this is a project that we think will cost about $18 million, would be funded with system revenue bonds, retired over time with tuition revenue. And then one of the reasons that we're doing this is the last project, and that is a classroom office research building. I believe the regents are all aware that the Fulton Schools of Engineering this fall is opening the latest School of Engineering. It's the School of Advanced Manufacturing. Tremendously excited about that in terms of what it will do to support the New Economy Initiative. Very excited about what that will do to support the semiconductor industry, which is huge in the Valley, and of course now growing, we know, with TSMC and Intel both announcing multi-billion-dollar additional investments. We are the largest source of engineering talent for Intel, and so this is just another way that we can support that industry and provide great employment opportunities for our students and fantastic research collaboration potential for our faculty. And so that facility is, we think, going to be approximately $150 million. Will include teaching, research, laboratory collaboration space, funded with a combination of system revenue bonds and lottery revenue. You'll recall that that is something that we were able to achieve during the last session, is to have some flexibility on that. So we'll be planning that and bringing it to you, but I think President Crow also wants to make a comment here.
I just wanted, for the benefit of the newer regents in particular, to understand the context of this decision. So we're building the 8th School of Engineering for Arizona State University, now the largest school of engineering in the US, on the Polytechnic campus. This is a huge decision on our part. So the facility will be built on that campus. The school will operate on that campus. We already have another engineering school, the Poly School, on that campus. So 2 of our engineering schools will be on that campus. This is a really big decision for us. We think that this will activate the rest of the site that we have, the innovation district that we have there that's not yet activated, not yet planned, not yet designed. This could be a really big deal. And so this is a project that Morgan and the other executive vice presidents, Nancy Gonzalez and Sally Morton in particular, are, full bore on how can we stand up this advanced manufacturing school as quickly as possible. And just to let regents know, this opportunity with this capital planning effort, we may just, hire or steal an entire manufacturing school from another university and bring them here. And then offer them this facility, offer them the new positions that we have in the new economy initiative. So we're very, very excited about this project.
So, Madam Chair, this is probably a good point for me to just stop and say, that's sort of the quick overview, but if there are questions that members of the committee have, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay, Regent Herbar?
On deferred maintenance, it looks like it's in the 280 million range, climbing to 290. If we were to look at history, has it always been the case that about that amount or slightly less and constantly growing by a very small amount? It just struck me as a very large number.
It is a significant number, absolutely. And, we know that that's been a challenge. I would say that in the last 5 years, through a couple of specific initiatives, we've made a pretty significant dent in it. One of the things to understand about Arizona State University.
With our own internal money, without the formula being funded by the state.
Correct. Yes, the formula has been, for all practical purposes, not a factor, unfortunately. We're required to calculate it every year. Our number is, $63.8 million, I think, dollars for this next year. I don't expect to see a dollar toward that, honestly. So we have to have other strategies. The one I mentioned earlier, our Capital Infrastructure Fund initiative, that was a legislative initiative that we were successful on, has been critically important there. And we just really have to build it into our business model. And the other factor I would mention is that because ASU is growing so rapidly, that we're adding lots of additional square footage. That's over the time that I've been here, it's probably, I'm not sure how many gross square feet, probably 1.7 billion of investment. So very significant. The good thing about that is there's a lot of new space, but guess what? New space ages and needs attention quickly. And one of the tensions that we have here is, because we're growing so rapidly, both in terms of our research mission, in terms of our enrollment, is that there's always this challenge to find enough money to reinvest in our existing built environment when we have so many other needs for new or different additional space. So it is something that we pay attention to. We'll probably be back to you in a couple of meetings talking about some specific challenges. I mentioned the Wilson Hall replacement. That's an example of a decision that we've made to say, that's a place where we just need to sort of start over. And we will eliminate a substantial number. I don't recall exactly. Alex Conan may have that number for Wilson Hall. Okay, so relatively modest, but we will eliminate some of our oldest facilities and make a dent in that. But it's not, you can never really stop working on it. It's a significant challenge.
We did, just as a point of information, as a new region, we just invested over $100 million in the renovation of our central library facility. And so we have been making these kinds of investments, and they're in our plan and in our structure. It's also worth noting in this context that, we don't need large new classroom facilities. We need, specialized facilities, research facilities, because of the way technology is buying us capacity. So, we're at 150,000 degree-seeking students now, 77,000 on our physical campuses with us, but we have not been adding more and more classroom spaces. We've been adding more and more research spaces and specialty spaces and so forth.
Our compound annual growth rate on online learning enrollment is 15% plus annually. And so over time, a greater and greater proportion of our students are studying, in other than and it's what we call an immersion mode, where they're coming physically to classrooms on our campuses. That's creating some demand, that's why we now have that IT infrastructure bundle as part of our planning. But it also means that we can accommodate a lot more students without building 200 square feet per FTE student, to accommodate that growth.
Thank you. Any other? Regent Manson?
Thank you. Morgan, we've talked about this in the past, and you've had a kind of a debt ladder, maturity ladder graph for us. $400 million is a lot of money. And so, ASU is an enormously big enterprise. Can you talk a little bit about how the debt maturity ladder looks, since all of these are funded through either system revenue bonds or the lottery revenue bonds, and the impact on debt service coverage?
For sure, yes. No, thank you, Regent Manson. I appreciate that question. And as we know, there's a state requirement that we keep our debt service ratio that would be calculated under the 8% limit. We're significantly under that, and as our scale grows, of course, that capability grows with it. When we look at with these plans that I've just been talking about, factoring that in, our maximum annual debt service year right now is projected to be fiscal year 2024, and that's 5%. We have about $2.3 billion of outstanding debt, about $181 million a year in annual debt service payments, that are built into the budgets that you review and approve. So that's the numbers as of 2024. The speed debt, which some of you are familiar, if you're really into this, which was a special legislative initiative, is in addition to that, and that would take our number to 5.5%. And so that's something that we always have to manage. I think we should probably be concerned not as much about are we under the 8% limit, but are we not crowding out other things that are important from a mission standpoint because we've got too much debt service. I don't believe that we're there.
Talk about our credit rating also.
Yeah, our credit rating is very strong. Standard & Poor's AA, AA2 from Moody's. It has maintained at that level for some time. We just came through a period where the outlook from many of the rating agencies for higher education was negative. That's for obvious reasons starting to improve a little bit now, but we had neither our rating nor our outlook decreased during that time period. So far, we have been able to demonstrate the ability to manage our debt load, which needs to grow each year in order to do the things that we do in the context of our overall operations, maintain our strong credit rating, which means that we have effectively, really, really great cost of capital. And so we try to manage that. If we have more time, we could talk about other things. President Crow has made the point about what I like to call OPM, use of other people's money. We do that in a very significant way through our public-private partnership arrangements. We've done that with probably going on $2 billion of, living and learning or communities for our students. We've done that probably pushing $500 million now on our energy public-private partnerships. We're always on the lookout. Are there new ways that we can do that? They have their pros and their cons, but all of that, helps us sort of manage this so that we have a balance in terms of our long-term financial equilibrium.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further question? Thank you, Morgan. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
And feedback. Next, we have Mr. Daniel Okoli. I believe he's in Zoom. Suzanne, is he in Zoom? Okay, perfect. Are you there, Mr. Okoli?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please provide your remarks for NAU. You have to stand.
Okay. Yes, Madam Chair, Regent Matter, and members of the committee, Northern Arizona University asked the committee to review and recommend forwarding to the full board for approval its fiscal year 2023 to 2025 capital improvement plan, which does not include fiscal year 2023 first year projects as described in the executive summary. Similar to last year, we are keeping a list of projects for year 2 and year 3 of the capital improvement plan, and then we'll refine our priorities through our campus master planning exercise starting this fall. Of note is that this list of 5 projects includes the 125,000 GSF interdisciplinary science and technology building that is dedicated to multiple disciplines with emphasis on science and technology programs, as well as 3 renovation projects. The CIP also includes building renewal cost of $29.2 million based on formula calculation. And you'll also notice that our deferred maintenance value has gone down from last year to this year because of the additional renovation projects we've completed since our last CIP. And finally, with our current debt limit, we remain below our statutory debt limit of 8%. And that ends my presentation, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Okoli. If there's any questions by the Regent Manson?
Sorry, it seems to be my day. Thank you, Dan. Can you give me an update on the status of the ISTB building? I know that it was planned mostly for increase in research activity at the university, and that we have already raised the Peterson building, which was the planned location. So can you tell me where that project is in status at this point?
Yes, Madam Chair, Regent Manson, we completed a programming study before we paused the project. And so at this point, as part of our master planning exercise, we will revisit and also see how that program will shift. There are some academic programs in the building from what we had done, and then there is an additional, there is some space for research, but the mix is something that we will have to revisit. Part of the project also has, as you can see in our second and third year project, we have renovation projects that would be part of this project. We have carved out some money to go into those projects. So again, we are paused, and as we start our master planning project exercise, we'll go back and take a look at the program and have a conversation as to whether the priorities are what they were or what kinds of changes we expect.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions for Daniel?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Regent Penley.
Thank you very much, Chair Mata. Dan, thanks very much for that explanation. In light of what you've just said in responding to Regent Manson. I'm wondering if NAU would be better off bringing an amended CIP at a later date once you've clarified a number of those issues that you've just introduced in your comments in response to her question.
Yeah,
If the answer is yes, Dan, and maybe President Cruz Rivera would like to speak to that, but if so, then maybe this item should be pulled from the CIP and an amended item brought forward at a later time in light of your yes.
no, I think I didn't say yes. I just
I
simply said.
apologize. That's the problem of technology in my hearing.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm really sorry that I'm not showing, because I had set up my things and I was showing. And then when I clicked my video, you just see a background. And so there's a problem with the camera. So please forgive me for that. However, we do not have any project in our first year capital CIP. And by the time we have a discussion of what our capital improvement plan, I believe that in bringing forth the second and third year projects in the next process, then at that point, if this project is one of those projects on the second year plan, then we will be bringing it forth with any updates, as it were. But as a project, I think it still stays in the capital improvement plan for the second or third year. And so I'm not sure if an amendment would be necessary, in the sense that this is just a list and we'll be reprioritizing, and the details do not come forth until we get to CDP. And at that point, if this project is one of those that come into the CDP, then it will have the details.
Thank you. President Cruz Rivera?
Yes, and we will be happy to take direction from the board on how best to manage this situation. As Dan Okoli has mentioned, a decision has been made to pause the start of this project for another year, so that we can continue with our capital planning, master planning process, and take another look with our constituents around the programming. And so we do expect by the time we come next year to the board to have a renewed version of what that project would look like. So whether that meets the the needs of the board versus taking it off the plan and then bringing back an amended version, I will look for direction from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz. I think we have Lorenzo that would like to explain some of the process on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Regent Penley. Because this project is listed in this 3-year CIP, it probably doesn't need to be amended. The next agenda item is NAU's 1-year capital development plan. And that plan does not have any projects, but as President Cruz Rivera mentioned, that is the vehicle where if they start to move sooner than anticipated, that's the plan that can be submitted as an amended plan. I hope that makes sense. So it is listed in the CIP, that 3-year outlook. In the coming year plan, the CDP, it's not listed because I don't think it meets their timeline, but if when it does, that is the plan that this project would be added to.
Thank you. Regent Penley?
Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. Certainly I know you're correct, having gone through this, that the capital development plan is really initiates the itemization of expenditures associated with this and results in significant background work when the CDP arrives. But it still strikes me that perhaps the best approach, in light of what President Cruz Rivera said about the master planning process that's going on, that this may be preliminary at this stage, even in a CIP, in the capital improvement plan. So therefore, Chair Mata, I move that this item be removed from the CIP.
Okay. Noted. Regent Mansam?
So I guess, and Regent Penley, let me just kind of clarify, because the CIP is a 3-year. So
Right.
if we were to amend the wording within that project, because what I'd hate to do is lose vision on it. So if we were to amend the wording in it to suggest that this project is currently on hold and will be evaluated relative to the new master plan, would that, at least then I don't lose track that it's actually.
A better amendment than mine. I withdraw mine and we'll go to yours.
Perfect,
Okay,
thank
so we'll be
you.
currently on hold until, yeah.
Currently on hold and will be reevaluated relative to the new master plan.
I will do the motion when we finish with U of A so that we have U of University. Do we have any other questions? Thank you, Daniel. I think we are all set. And we move forward now with Lisa Rolno. Please provide the remarks for University of Arizona.
Are we ready, Chair Montan?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Thank
yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Like my colleagues shared before, the executive summary and the CIP booklet that we submitted has a lot of information. So I'm going to focus on a few key highlights today. Under President Robbins' leadership, our capital planning process, our mantra has been "Wonder makes us persevere," which we adopted last year during the height of the pandemic, and we continue to approach planning and as an integrative process, bringing together our academic, research, financial, and physical planning expertise. We've always planned for tomorrow while solving today's challenges. We dream, play, and solve for a shared future that's bright for everyone. We are defined by our people, and we know we're better together. We do more when we work across backgrounds, skills, and perspectives, converging on what matters most for our students, our community, and our world. We remain focused on shaping the future, near and long term, as we plan and build for purpose, for both growth and renewal. So our capital plan, improvement plan directly reflects our priorities, which are creating safe, dynamic, and inclusive spaces that inspire living, learning, growing, and dreaming, while improving productivity through a campus that connects people, places, and our community. Next slide, please. Our CIP has one project in the first year, and that is to create a new highly visible facility located at the Bridges to house the growing program of Arizona Public Media, or AZPM, and it allows for the installation of upcoming necessary upgrades to broadcasting technologies. Some are driven by significant changes to broadcasting protocols. You'll see here on this slide a map of Tucson. On the west half, the main campus is near the top, and I-10 is running along the left side. A few miles south is the Bridges, which is a location we're currently targeting for this new facility. For our newer regions, the Bridges is part of Tucson's newest and most innovative mixed-use developments. At build-out, this dynamic community will include sophisticated biotechnology, office and laboratory space, a regional shopping center, and residential development. Our partners at the Bridges include the University of Arizona, Retail West Eastbourne Investment, and 5151 East, which is a joint venture between KB Homes and Lennar Homes. In addition to the 65-acre tech park, the Bridges includes 112 acres of retail development and 175 acres of residential development. Costco and Walmart anchor the retail component known as the Tucson Marketplace at the Bridges, and this regional shopping center complements the high-tech companies at the park and provides employment opportunities to our surrounding community. The refinery, which is seen in the southern orange area of the zoomed-in map, is a 4-story, 120,000 square foot office building under construction by the Boyer Company. This building will serve as an innovation and commercialization hub anchored by the university, and it provides the ideal platform for technology advancements and business growth. Activities at the refinery include the University of Arizona Applied Research Corporation, the new offices for Tech Launch Arizona, which is our innovation hub, and an incubator outpost, and programming for the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, plus innovation space for our students and faculty. Next slide, please. While we're only in the preliminary conceptual phase for the AZPM facility, we plan for a significant amount of square footage for a television production performance studio that would accommodate theater-style collapsible seating, which you can see depicted here on the slide. We also are planning for a large high-tech conference space that would support a variety of gatherings for AZPM, the university, and the community. And both of these spaces would provide potential rental income, which could be used to support AZPM's operations in the future. There is great excitement for this project, both within AZPM, the university, and our community. And I'll note that while we haven't even launched the public phase of the campaign for this building, we have already raised 75% of the $45 million project costs. And given the support that we see for AZPM and the excitement that this new facility is bringing, we are highly confident in our ability to quickly raise the remaining funds once the campaign moves into the public phase. Our 2-year capital plan forecast remains committed to our core values and strategic objectives of productive investment in existing assets while planning and building to best facilitate the success of our students. And I'll just highlight a few of the projects that are included: reconfiguring and expanding the built environment for our students who study the built environment. That will enhance learning outcomes for a growing number of architecture, planning, and landscape architecture students. We'll reimagine the space within the University of Arizona Health Sciences. That includes banner vacated space to improve our research and educational opportunities for students, researchers, and faculty members. And we'll invest in existing and developing new facilities to meet our strategic goal of cementing the U of A as an arts destination, further integrating arts throughout the campus experience. And like our colleagues, we focus on reimagining and revitalizing our research and education spaces throughout campus, our existing buildings, particularly in light of a post-pandemic world. And I'd like to pause there for a moment, as we're thinking about existing buildings, and note that last year I recall Regents being interested in how we inspect our buildings, as noted in the building inventory report, and ensuring consistency among the 3 universities and how we calculated our deferred maintenance estimates. So our AVP for facilities, Chris Kopak, and his counterparts at ASU and NAU recently met and determined that they are consistently applying the calculation known as the Sherman-Durgis formula for the facilities condition index. And you'll see that this year we've clarified in our report that our team in facilities management performs the gamut of health and safety code compliance, preventative maintenance inspections on fire systems, elevators, HVAC, water, they do this on a monthly, annually, and quarterly basis as required for each system. We call this the nonstop cycle of inspection, and it particularly holds true for HVAC systems where we have been performing additional inspections throughout the pandemic. You may recall that we have upgraded over 8,000 MERV 13 filters in our building's HVAC systems to help our community stay safe in the pandemic and beyond. And we also contract with outside consultants to perform a comprehensive inspection review of a core group of 140 of our most highly critical and high priority buildings on a 4-year cycle, inspecting 35 buildings per year. So this combination of reviews ensures that all of our buildings are maintained in a safe operating condition. It's incredibly important for us to keep our campus safe. And I'll close with that we continue to carefully manage our debt portfolio and maintain a considerable amount of debt capacity to help meet future capital development needs. Based on our current outstanding debt and projects previously approved through our CDP, The highest projected debt ratio is 5.6% in fiscal year 2024, and our projected highest debt ratio, including speed revenue bonds, is 6.7 in fiscal year 22, both well below the statutory limit of 8%. I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions about our CIP.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions by the Regent? Regent Penley?
Thank you, Regent Mata. I appreciate, Lisa, thanks very much for the clarification on the inspection and review issue, about which I've been concerned in the past. This concern originated with regard to NAU. Perhaps, and I'll turn to our executive director and to Lorenzo, perhaps we at some point need to look at whether indeed we're doing the same kinds of inspections at all three universities and cataloging these in the same way, because it could well be that we have a different approach at each of the three universities, which is fine. Ultimately, as we know, the end result here is to have safe buildings for students and faculty and the public who may use those buildings. But it may be that we need to look into whether we're using the same approach and criteria.
Comment on that.
Director Arnold. Yes.
Thank you, Regent Mata, and thank you, Regent Penley. In addition to the inspections, each of the universities have a robust preventive maintenance program that I think the building inspections falls kind of within that preventative maintenance. And Lorenzo and I did a review of those PM programs. It's probably been 4 or 5 years now since we went and met with each institution and really delved into how those PM programs work and wanted to make sure they were all robust. And it's probably time to revisit that particular issue. So not just the inspections, but also how are they maintaining their tasks, tracking those, and ensuring that those preventive maintenance tasks are being completed that really roll up into that inspection platform. All three, when we went through it last time, had excellent programs. I think UA's is world renowned, and I know they communicate among the three on those programs and what they do. So anyway, I think it would be useful to revisit that.
Thank you. Any further questions for Lisa? Regent Herbal?
I'll make the same comment I made with ASU. The deferred maintenance number is huge. 350 million growing to 370 in the next 2 years. So I don't know, as I mentioned before in regard to ASU, I don't know what the trends are, but boy, that's a big number.
Chair Mata, Regent Herbal, I appreciate the question and the opportunity to address this with the board. It's something that we've all been concerned about for years. And like Morgan mentioned, we have the capital infrastructure funds that were given to the universities through the legislature years ago. The University of Arizona has been using those strategically. We've upgraded our building 90 for microbiology, the Stewart Observatory building. We've done many projects, small projects across the campus for critical life safety systems. And we build that into our campus master plan. And all of our projects look to where we can focus on deferred maintenance, but we also don't expect to receive money from the state, so have to use tuition revenues and other sources to cover deferred maintenance. It's a part of our master planning process.
Thank you. Any other question? President Crow?
I just wanted to make one comment to Regent Herbold's question, and that is that number that you see there is a formulaically derived calculation from an unimplemented state procedure that doesn't really reflect where we are relative to the utility of our buildings. And so it's I think even statutorily required that we submit. I think, John, you probably, I think it's a statutory thing. No one pays any attention to it. No one has ever paid any attention to it at the sort of policy level. So if you were to ask us sort of where are we, relative to our buildings, that's a different question. We might spend some time, working on that.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal, but it's different than that number.
Yeah, it's questionable why we should see this number.
Yeah, well, because we're required to produce it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those kind of artifacts.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Any other question? Seeing none, Lisa, thank you very much. Okay, so I have to reword this motion because we have NAU oops, on a different. So
Can we rework the wording on the motion? I think Regent Penley maybe has some.
That we amend the motion associated with NAU to state that let me see if I can say this in the right way. So that it incorporates a reconceptualization of the space programming.
can you incorporate a?
That it incorporates a reconceptualization of the physical space programming at the institution. Now, Regent Manson, did that get it?
I think that works, yeah.
President Cruz Rivera?
Yes, thank you. I think that would be in line with our approach to try to rethink how that space is allocated in terms of educational use versus research use. And that will help us bring to the board a reconceptualized proposal that will meet the new direction that we're taking at NAU.
Okay, this is a draft that I heard, and I want to make sure before I make the motion. Thank you, President Cruz. So that NAU will amend, we will amend the motion associated with NAU that incorporates a reconceptualization of physical space at the institution. Is that correct?
For the ISTB.
For the
For the
building.
ISTP project. So essentially, I think what we can do, Regent Mata, is I can move that there is an anticipated, we move that we approve the NAU CIP with the understanding that there will be a reconceptualization of the physical space programming in the future that affects the ISTP building.
And we will forward that specific to the committee, to the full board for approval. The Northern Arizona University with that amendment. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries for NAU. So we need to do U of A and ASU. So I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval the fiscal year 2023-2025 capital improvement plans for Arizona State University and University of Arizona as described in the executive summary. If there is a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I think we have a break now for, do we take the break? Right now is 11:15, so we can do a 10-minute. Yeah, we could take a 10-minute break. Right now is 11:15, and we'll be back at 11:25. Ross?
Yes, I
Okay,
can.
yeah, please, you have this done, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. NAU's capital development plan has no projects in it this time, since that represents the first year projects of the capital improvement plan, which includes no project. The NAU's debt limit remains below the statutory debt limit. And that's the end of my comments, and I can take any questions.
Any questions for the regent? Seeing none. Okay. I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval the Northern Arizona University Capital Development Plan as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 6 is an action item as well, and it's the review of ASU amended capital development plan. And we will have Morgan Olson presenting this item. Morgan, this is your stage.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and I am looking for a clicker. Is somebody else, you're driving? Okay, well, I'll give you a cue. I think because I spent a fair amount of time going over the projects in the first year of the CIP just shortly ago, they're the subset of that for our new projects on the CDP. So I'll try to do that pretty quickly and not take an awful lot of time. If you would advance the slide, please. Just a good reminder for ourselves, if not for the board, that everything that we do in terms of our built infrastructure should be driven by our charter and our mission and our strategic goals. In other words, form should follow function. And so we try to keep that in mind. You see the ASU charter here that you've seen probably a number of times before. Please advance the slide. Similarly, a lot of what we're doing is around goals of student success. We want to make sure that students have a great experience, that they advance academically, that they achieve degrees, that they go out and do great things in the world. And having the right physical environment to do that is really what we're focused on in terms of what we're doing here with our capital planning. Next slide, please. So we have a number of new projects, 6 of them to be specific, on the amended CDP, which means that we would be working on these, continue to work on them really right away. It totals about $241 million in total in terms of the initial capital cost. You can see them here. Please advance. The first one is the classroom office building that will be immediately to the northwest of us here as we sit here in the MU. The building itself, we're going to try to make fit within sort of the mid-century modern architecture that we have in this part of the campus, but in a way that is absolutely, modern and forward-looking in terms of the experience that people have. Advance the slide, if you would, please. I've gone through all this, so I won't spend a lot of time here on the details, other than to correct something that I said earlier. It actually is about $11.9 million of accumulated deferred maintenance. So we're not getting rid of that $260 million in one fell swoop, but when we do this, we'll get rid of about 12 million of it right up front. Next slide, please. These are the bundles. And so, building infrastructure enhancements, not exciting stuff until something doesn't work. And then of course people get concerned immediately. And so, keeping the trains running, et cetera, is what we hope to do here. Next slide. We also, next slide, please, do have additional bundles, including classroom and academic renovations, as you would expect with, the size of our immersion enrollment, almost 80,000 students, that we would have lots of need for updating our classrooms. The nature of pedagogy and instruction are changing. And of course, we all learned that we could do a whole lot of things that we didn't think were possible previously in terms of ASU Sync, in our case, to get through the pandemic. And so we're trying to take what we learned from that and incorporate that into the learning environment going forward. Next slide. Next slide. We also are dealing with our research and laboratory renovations as well. Next slide, please. That bundle is about $20 million and will provide a variety of upgrades that are necessary to be, the knowledge development organization that we want to be as a research university. So it's a relatively modest amount of money, but if we include in our capital planning these bundles every 18 months to 2 years, then we're able to sort of do the most critical things. And we have a very detailed prioritization process and spend a lot of time arguing with each other to make sure that we get the most important things in the queue at the right time. Next slide, please. IT infrastructure obviously affects all of our campuses, as do all the other bundles. Advance the slide, if you would, please. And those are the 3 things that I talked about earlier there in terms of making sure we have the network infrastructure, both wired and wireless, to support all the things we're doing. For example, having high bandwidth networking for faculty who are doing, intense high-performance computing, lots of number crunching, lots of graphics is very important to support their work. We also need the compute engines behind that. We've made a fairly large transition to the cloud in terms of what we're doing with our enterprise applications, but also with what we're doing with research and high-performance computing. Relatively few of our actual enterprise applications and high-performance computing applications actually run on premise. We have one high-performance computing location on this campus, but we're increasingly doing that through partnerships, and we find that we can provision things much more quickly. They're more fault tolerant, and basically it's just sort of a better, more cost-effective way for us to go. But there are lots of investments that need to happen to make that occur. So that's the almost $37 million IT infrastructure bundle that you see there. Next slide, if you would. So Mill Avenue parking structure, again, this is on the southeast corner of University and Mill. If you sort of see them in relief there, but the Mirabella lifelong learning community on the right, and then the now being built, coming out of the ground, Omni Hotel and Conference Center that will support many, many university functions. On the left, this will help support those functions as well as replace parking that used to be in a big asphalt parking lot that's now being developed. You see here a depiction of the wrap on the east side of that building. We'd very much like to have an active streetscape in that area. Mill Avenue, of course, continues to the north of University. We're not thinking exactly replicating the north part of Mill Avenue, but we do want to invite the community in. And we're working with the city in terms of thinking that through. Next slide. So previously talked about this, so I won't spend a lot of time going over it.
Morgan, sorry,
I'm
can you hold
Yes.
that?
Very quickly.
Sorry,
Jim
just
Manson wants to say something.
On the parking structure, so
Yes.
this is the one opportunity where you have a revenue generator to offset the debt service.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so the users of the parking structure will essentially pay for it over time. We'll issue debt that will then be retired with debt service that is generated from those revenues. Is that the question?
So if you've got $2.3 million in debt service a year,
Yes.
when are you cash flowing on that project positively?
Yeah, so again, we issue bonds, pay the capital cost up front, and then we have established a schedule, a debt service schedule. And so we would expect, probably after a kind of a startup, stabilization year that we're there.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
As we shared earlier, there's some risks with that. If everybody starts, flying in autonomous hovercrafts, well, we probably don't need as much space for cars. And, so we have thought about, how we might repurpose some of these newer garages. Honestly, you spend more money first cost when you do that. But then if you need to transition those into office or retail space or something else, then, you're a little better poised to do that than the nature of the structures that we used to build.
And then, I might add, Morgan, please, you comment for the Regents on the structure of parking and transit services, so they understand that as an auxiliary enterprise, how it works, what it funds, just in general, because it's a lot more than capital. It's a huge business activity. So.
Right. Yeah. So essentially, the way that we approach this is that it's an auxiliary, which it means it covers all of its costs. And in the case of parking transit, even a little more than that. Currently, we try very hard to keep those costs affordable. We occasionally have to explain to people why everybody can't just have free parking. This garage, I think, is about a $42 million investment. So, that has to be covered, the staff and the maintenance, et cetera. So everybody pays to park at ASU, students, faculty, staff, visitors, but we try to be very customer accommodating in terms of that. You can buy various types of permits, you can pay as you go. There are various price points depending on what type of parking, where you are, et cetera. We also use some of the revenue from parking and transit services to cover the widespread availability of mass transit. So our students get a certain discount on the use of all of the circulator buses that serve the campus and the downtown Tempe community, or our shuttles that run among our campuses. We have lots of students who study and, you know, they may study on one campus or multiple campuses and live on another. They like to be able to move back and forth quickly, and they're either using our systems to do that, our buses, or they're using Valley Metro light rail. We try to make sure that they have all the amenities. So, for example, if you get on one of our buses, unless it's a bad day, they all have Wi-Fi. You know, so if you want to, you can be working on homework, actually taking, you know, a course while you're moving from one location to another, or, you know, possibly a couple of people also watch Netflix. I'm not sure about that, but, you know, the point is that it's a comfortable environment that facilitates student success. So that's the idea.
It's a self-contained enterprise that pays the debt, provides the resources for our transportation systems, allows the university to operate as a single university across multiple campuses, students moving around and so forth. And so what's the total PTS operating budget?
Oh, gosh. I will have to go back and look. I'm thinking it's in the neighborhood of, you know, $38 million a year, but someone can check me on that. So it's a substantial enterprise. We also learned that, you know, it's necessary to you know, balance your expenses and your revenue. In the last year and a half, revenue's been kind of tough. So we're glad to see all the, you know, all the people and the activity back. And, you know, we have held our rates on parking constant now for 14 years. I suspect that we're coming to an end of that string at some point, but
That was after we raised them 4,000%.
it wasn't quite 4,000. I can tell you that we are at or below market in all of our locations. So our parking, for example, in downtown Phoenix is some of the most expensive, you know, guaranteed parking that you will, or inexpensive guaranteed parking that you will find there relative to market. But of course, it's still too high. You know, the entire definition of a university is they're united by a common grievance on parking, and it's not any different here. So, all right. So next slide, please. This is the two projects that I mentioned to you. These are actually in our one-year capital plan, the first year of the CIP, the Polytechnic campus. Advance the slide, please. So this is a picture of a beautiful central utility plant, and we envision one that looks at least as nice as this one, maybe though in maroon and gold, I'm not sure. But this will give us the infrastructure that we need both to replace some of the aging old airbase infrastructure and expand. You know, we have plans to add the building that I'll talk about in a minute for the Fulton Schools of Engineering. We also are getting to the point where we're going to need to expand the student union there, and then we have some other academic space additions that we need to make. So essentially, this is the infrastructure investment that's necessary to facilitate that. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here is a very early conception of what that classroom office research building might look like. Each of our campuses has a relatively distinctive architecture. I'm sure that Ed Soltero, the university architect, would do a much better job of describing exactly what this is than I'm going to do. But you know, this will fit sort of the desert environment architecture that we have on the Polytechnic campus, with a lot of open space, a lot of shading, you know, to try to fight off solar heat gain, et cetera. And this would be at the south side of the core Polytechnic campus on the loop road that runs all the way around the core, Innovation Way. And so this would sit right on Innovation Way, and both literally and figuratively would be sort of a connecting point between the core polyacademic campus and the innovation zone that President Crow spoke about earlier. And so, you know, we would love, for example, to be able to attract a lot of industry that's involved with advanced manufacturing, robotics, artificial intelligence, semiconductor, that are going to be the topics of some of the research and the teaching that goes on in this school. We'd like to be able to collaborate with those industries in the innovation zone.
Just want to add one point. There's some possibility that we can achieve certain other goals with this facility rollout that will be associated with us finding ways to expand our innovation and creativity space. So we may at some point come back. I'm just sort of laying this marker down with an addition to this concept related to a project that we're working on with an institution outside the United States that has demonstrated an unbelievable facility for high creativity and innovation. So we're working on that. I visited that facility in Paris a few weeks ago, and so we may decide to add one of those to this project. So.
Next slide, please. So again, we've covered this information. I won't belabor it here. Next slide, please. I'll just finish up by saying, again, this is about $241 million, we think, worth of capital projects, largely debt financed with system revenue bonds. Again, we think our maximum annual debt service year based on these plans is 5%. That will hit in 2024. In fairness, though, I would tell you, I don't think we're probably all done issuing debt in 2024, and it'll just go straight down thereafter, just for context. The total, including our speed debt, is 5.5%. The good news is that 80% of speed debt is covered by state lottery revenue. There have been years where state lottery revenue is not so great, and we didn't get to our 80%. More recently, we've consistently been over that, and so, you know, all that money has hit the bucket, and 80% of our debt service there has been covered by lottery revenue. We think that the estimated annual O&M, operations and maintenance costs, once we build all this stuff, is going to be about $1.33 million. Again, that will be built into our operating budgets that you review and approve. And if we do these things, you know, we think they'll have lots of benefits, but most specifically, that allow us to accommodate our growing enrollment. We should be able to focus on improving freshman retention. You've seen the numbers and know how much that's increased over the last decade. You know, but we need to continue that trajectory, and some of these investments will help us do that. We'll have improved degree production, particularly STEM degrees. That building on the Poly campus that I mentioned to you particularly will help with that. And then, of course, we have rather significant goals in terms of our sponsored research dollar totals, and that will help tremendously with that as well. So with that, I will stop, Madam Chair. If there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Regent Reinhardt?
Thank you. Question, you see all these buildings for ASU campus. I know about downtown and the progress made there, and then the Polytechnic campus. How about ASU West? What are the plans for buildings out there? What are the plans for development? Some of your special programs that may go out there. So I just like to, I don't see any buildings for the ASU West campus in your development plan.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. That's, you know, that tends to be cyclical. You know, every campus sort of has its year, but I know President Crow wants to make a couple comments first, so I'll yield to him.
So Regent, right now we have this semester 77,000 students on campus with us in our full immersion programs. And so our goal for many years has been to grow that number to around 95,000 students. That will require, because that cannot occur on the Tempe campus, the fulfillment of the growth potential of the West campus and the Polytechnic campus. And so in the case of the West campus, our most recent projects there have been the new rec center that's built there, a new residence hall that's been built there, a new private school that we operate for profoundly gifted that has been built there. And so we do have plans and strategies, the
dining hall
and the new dining hall that was built there. So we have been adding amenities to that campus, which then allow us to drive the enrollment up on that campus. We've set for Provost Gonzalez very significant enrollment enhancement goals for the Polytechnic and the West campus. And then that enrollment growth on the West campus will then accelerate what we might need to build. Right now, our facilities that we have there, and Morgan can comment on this, can accommodate many more students than we have on that campus right now. So we're looking at the end of the day to be getting the West campus and the Polytechnic campus to roughly 15,000-ish students each. And we believe that those goals are attainable. And then we will build out the West campus, both for academic programs. We also have part of that property set aside as an innovation campus on the west side also. So all those are in the strategy right now. Morgan can give you any more details. So
sure. So I in addition to what Dr. Crow's already said, you know we have additional capacity there. We'll have to make some adjustments. So, you know, I would not rule out us coming back to you and saying, hey, we need to make this investment as enrollment grows, et cetera. But we're broadening the program mix on the West campus. We are planning an additional residence hall that will probably be a P3 delivery, and we'll probably start on that in a couple of years. And so there will be more, but at this point, we're really focused on that program mix, and the resulting enrollment increases we think will occur there is based on the goals that President Crow set for everyone.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Thank you, Morgan. So I'm going to do the motion. So I move to the committee forward to the full board for approval, the Arizona State University amended capital development plan as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 7. I think that Morgan will have to come back. You shouldn't go, no? Okay, we'll have also President Crow, Morgan, to present. It's a review of ASU Novus Innovation Corridor Annual Report, and this is for information only. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Let me just start by observing that this is something that by your decision, we do annually, and that is to make a report on where we are with the innovation corridor that is on the Tempe campus. We have branded that Novus, which is Latin for new, and that is so that is part of how we sort of keep you abreast of what's happening here. With me is John Creer. John Creer is the university's vice president for university real estate. I mentioned earlier that if you look in the details of the capital improvement plan for ASU, when you're probably looking for something to do, one of the things that's in there is our lease report, and you will see that we do lease a significant amount of space as a lessee, but we also are a lesser of significant space. And so John has sort of a dual mission at the university, and that is to provide for the, I'll call it the transitory space needs of the university, making sure that we have the space that we need of a particular type when we need it, et cetera, and managing that whole portfolio, but then also being a landlord. And part of that is around our innovation zones. So our innovation zones are the part of his job where we're looking for him to collaborate, with other colleagues across the university who have relationships, so we can turn those partners into tenants and neighbors as well. And so that's a revenue generation opportunity as well. So we do have a quick slide presentation for you. I'll try to keep it interactive, so if you have questions, just yell them out. But next slide, please. So these are the goals of Novus. Again, the legislature authorized each university to have a university athletic facilities district in 2010. We decided that our district would be here in Tempe on land that was significantly underutilized previously. I came here from a Big Ten university that had a pretty good sized endowment and has had it for a long time. We've done fantastically well with private fundraising here over the last few years, just finished a wonderfully successful capital campaign. But that's something that we're getting better at fast. My previous institution, had a substantial financial endowment long before ASU did. So we look for our opportunities, and one of the opportunities we realized we had is we had this land around downtown Tempe. It was very valuable, and the university wasn't using it well, if at all. In a lot of cases, the land along Tempe Town Lake was actually, sadly, a dumping ground. So we saw opportunity, we've realized it. We now have this innovation zone of about 355 acres. We are going to try to accomplish the things you see on the screen here as we do that. We want to make sure that we're following the New American University design aspirations. That has a lot of implications in terms of being socially embedded and serving our communities and our stakeholders. It means that we want to be a sustainable development. That's absolutely a part of the ASU DNA. And the reason the law was passed was to allow us to generate resources that would be used for the development and maintenance of our intercollegiate athletic facilities. You all know that that's a very expensive undertaking, to be in college athletics at the kind of the Pac-12 or other big-time conference level. So we have major investments in those facilities. We have to keep them up in order to be competitive for the best student athletes. So that is a very sort of functional aspect of this. We won't be successful without it, but if we only accomplish generating dollars, we're also not successful. So we want to create this urban mixed-use smart city development. We're creating our community around the downtown area next to the Tempe campus, and so we can have a lot to say working with the city of Tempe and others about how that develops. And we know what's happened in the last decade here is downtown Tempe has become the second major urban center, along with the city of Phoenix in the valley. So incredible transformation in the 13 years that I've been here. I sort of have this informal metric of, how many places can I walk from my office, to a restaurant and get back to my office in time for my next meeting half an hour later. And that list used to be probably restaurants I count on one hand. Now I don't have enough fingers and toes. And if you look at the scale and density of downtown Tempe, it's quite a transformation. So that brings me to the last point, and that is that we do believe strongly that the university can be a major economic engine for the city and the valley and for the state. There are opportunities to harness the knowledge that our faculty develop, and we can disseminate that knowledge. We can partner with others to create more. So those are the things that President Crow has laid out to us is what you got to do. So if you'd advance the slide, it's been really, I think, great progress over the last year. Despite the pandemic, we've continued to hit some milestones that I think are important. We have our first full-time residents living in Novus. That's in phase 3 on the northwest corner of University and Rural. We have activity occurring in multiple phases, 3, 4, 5 right now. We have multiple athletic venues that are completed. Sun Devil Stadium, our athletic fields just recently completed and are available for use by our students as well as our student athletes this fall. We have new sand volleyball courts that are under construction currently. We have the new 5,000-seat multi-purpose arena that is in construction right now and will be completed a little bit over a year from now. We are processing assessments that are part of the relationship for being a tenant in the Novus Innovation Corridor. These are assessed and then paid annually and provide an ongoing continuing revenue stream for the university and our intercollegiate athletic facilities. So I'll say more about this later, but we've been very pleased about the progress we've been able to make with a commercial development in terms of the sustainability of the built environment it contains. That's not something you typically see in Arizona, and so we feel like we're, with partners, kind of helping pave the way and show how that can be done and should be done. And then finally, we are now implementing some of our smart city initiatives and putting in place some of the infrastructure that we think that's going to allow us to be technologically flexible and current, years down the road. We don't know exactly what will happen, and so we're trying to be as forward-thinking and flexible as we possibly can. Next slide, if you would. So here is the master development plan. There's a lot on here. I obviously won't try to go through anywhere near all of it here, but you see the phases. The first phase at the upper left there is Marina Heights, which is the home of one of 3 regional hubs for the State Farm Automobile Insurance Company, a Fortune 45 company that could have located anywhere. We are grateful that we were able to convince them that this is where they should have one of those 3 hubs. That has subsequently manifested itself in 5 buildings, over 2.1 million gross square feet of development. More recently, Carvana,
which you now own. The Arizona Board of Regents owns that 2.1 million square feet.
Correct, yes. All of this, the land and the buildings are ultimately owned by the Arizona Board of Regents on behalf of Arizona State University. Carvana is also located in Marina Heights. It's right along Tempe Town Lake. The second phase, of course, was the reinvention of Sun Devil Stadium and the creation of the concept we call Community Union 365. As President Crow observed earlier, the university invested about $330 million in that reinvention. Kind of a staggering number. And one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we ended up more than a really nice football stadium. We did get a really nice football stadium, but we also got a facility that we can use around the calendar, hence the 365. It's also a facility in which we can invite the community in for various sorts of things, including, strangely, goat yoga, which I know John is really big on. I haven't tried it yet, but seriously, it does allow us to use that facility much more than 7 or 8 times a year. I still remember another university years ago, we built a new football stadium, and I was taking some visitors through from New Zealand, and I was really proud. it looked great, beautiful stadium, and explained it all, how much it cost, et cetera. And they said, oh yeah, how often do you use this? And I kind of stopped and I'm like, oh, I don't even want to give them this answer, because the answer was, oh, we use it about 10 times a year. And, so we're trying to do something different here. We think we did. And we're going to follow that theme on through as we do other facilities in the area. So phase 3 is, you see in the bubble down there, northwest corner of University and Rural. We're deep into that. I'll say more on that later. You can see the colors, the different types of developments, truly mixed use. So we're going to have, Class A commercial office buildings. We'll have other types of office buildings, more creative office. To complement that, we will have residential. So it's a place, the idea is live, work, play is the term you hear in the real estate business. Part of new urbanism and sustainability is allowing people to be close to their work. They can live there and they can also live the rest of their lives there. It's fantastic environment along the lake and all the recreational options that are available, Papago Park, et cetera. So next slide, if you would, please. This is a view looking kind of to the northwest. You see Sun Devil Stadium there between the buttes in the background. This is a conception of what we believe you will see when we're close to completion. There's some to the east of this that you don't see here, but clearly a more urban, denser, but we think still manageable sort of an environment. You don't mostly see 20-story buildings. You see more 4 to 6 to 8-story buildings. And so we want to maintain walkability and neighborhood feel. Next slide. So this is an update on development. Advance, please. The maroon here is the buildings within Novus boundary, which is in black there. You can see outlining it that have been completed. I've mentioned Marina Heights and Sun Devil Stadium. We have 4 structures within phase 3 at the northwest corner of University and Rural. The recreational fields you see there to the east of Rural. Advance the slide if you would. So here are pictures of some of the completed projects, including at the upper left, Marina Heights, that was phase 1. The upper right, Sun Devil Stadium, phase 2. Also completed are the 7-7 Tower, phase 3. That was the first Class A commercial office building. Major tenants, in addition to the university there, are Infosys, which employs millions of people globally, a major infotech consulting company. They have a location here. We have a relatively broad and growing relationship with them. President Crow is instrumental in working with ACA and others to help make that happen. And of course, we're busy trying to convince them to even double down on what they have here. The Hyatt Place, Hyatt House Hotel, the lower right there, that is going to be really important in terms of business visitors to the innovation corridor, also to the university. It's tough to get a reservation there for the fall. It happens to be right across kitty corner, from Sun Devil Stadium. It will also be close to our other major performance venues in Desert Financial Arena for basketball and volleyball, and the new MPA that I mentioned earlier that's under construction now. Next slide, please. So also completed is the Novus garage that the university owns, because we want to be able to control both that real estate and how the garage is used. It's a shared public-private garage. You see the recreation fields and our first multifamily residential, which is opening now. There are currently tenants and they're opening that in phases. Next slide, please. So then we're also working on quite a number of things, John and his team here. Lower left, you see ISTB 7, and I'll have more to say about that in a minute. That is at the north end of our research neighborhood for the Tempe campus. Most of our most research-intensive facilities are sort of along the west side of Rural Road. The MPA to the north of that you see along Packard Drive there. And then east of Rural, in addition to the sand volleyball courts that are in construction now, that you see that small yellow block kind of in the middle, we are working on the first phase of what we think will be a multi-phase creative office project that will be appealing to various types of firms like architects and marketing firms and people in various creative industries who like high ceiling, loft-like facilities. It's another category, if you will, for us to attract partners and tenants. Next slide. So you see some of those things, ISTV 7 at the upper left, that's about $192 million institutional investment that's
Empty with no scientific equipment.
now you're
Just to let you
depressing me.
know, there's many more expenses.
It's going to greatly leverage our ability, to reach our research goals, heavily focused on sustainability. Will advance our, our brand and our commitment there. The connector I mentioned at the upper right, that's the University Drive pedestrian bridge. We're investing about $13.5 million in that bridge. It's a pedestrian bridge over University Drive, just west of Rural. We think that's important to connect the research neighborhood and the light rail stop, which has been renamed the Earth Life Space Valley Metro Light Rail Stop, indicative of the kind of intellectual work that's going on around it, with the innovation corridor across University Drive. So, it's both figurative and it's literal. People can move back and forth between, collaborations with other entities on the north side and what's happening on the south side in terms of the research neighborhood. And then the creative office, an example of how that might look. So next slide, please. So here is sort of the next wave developments you see up along the lake coming across Town Lake on Rural. Major opportunity there, we think, for a mixed-use development that may involve office and hotel. And one of the things that the successes we've had to date in terms of the acceptance, by the institutional real estate committee or community who are willing to, make investments in acquiring these projects in Novus, we think puts us in a place where we can anticipate a more national marketplace. And so we're working with a firm that will help us market this, that has those types of national connections, which we think create a wider opportunity set. And of course, if we do better financially in the process, that would be great. Also, expansion on the right there of the creative office area, and then sort of finishing out phase 3, which is mostly on the northwest side of University and Rural. But as you can see, there's a block there on the east side. That block is going to be our third, if I'm recalling correctly, multifamily residential project. We have a developer in place on that, and I think we're in escrow with them, John. And they are very much a institutional scale developer of multifamily residential, which is great. Next slide, please. So there is hundreds of millions of dollars of development going on in that little intersection, and just to make it even more fun, the city has also torn up University and Rural in that area, putting in infrastructure, utility lines there. So between us finishing up building the bridge, and then with that's a really busy intersection, and the only period we don't do construction is around football games. I don't know how that all works, but it's a busy place right now. But if you were to go back, this is July, last month, if you were to go back 2 years ago and look at this, you would see a lot of nothing. So there's been a tremendous amount that's happened in this area. In fact, we've actually had, as you know, lots of faculty and staff who've been working remotely. We literally have had people who show up at this intersection, they're like, I don't know where I am. I took a wrong turn someplace. It's transformed that much. So exciting. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're working on next is sort of the community building or placemaking, neighborhood building piece of this. We want this to be more than just, well, here's a building over here, here's a building over there, there's no relationship. So we're trying to build a place, build the neighborhood. We are creating a new street that will run north-south from University all the way up to Rio Salado, called Novus Place. And Novus Place will be sort of the spine, if you will, of this neighborhood that we're building in phase 3. Next slide, if you would. Here again, you see the depiction of the connector bridge. Next slide. One of the things that we hope occurs here is that there will be, restaurants and other types of hospitality locations. So it's a place where, people feel comfortable having a business lunch, having a dinner before an ASU athletic event, or taking people who may be coming to see the university or one of our partners who are tenants in the innovation zone, so that you truly can sort of be there around the clock. You know, you can live there if you want, you can work there, but you also can, you know, spend your personal life in this area as well. So this concept here you see in parcel 3A is one where we would work with one or more major restaurateurs that would be able to provide this type of environment for us and be an additional attraction point for people to Novus. Next slide. Here you see the multi-purpose arena. I spent a lot of time making sure we're doing this one right. This is one of my favorites, very exciting. It's going to be a host to 3 different of our Sun Devil athletic teams as a competition venue. It will also invite in the community. We will have a community rink on the west end where youth hockey can come in and play. It would also be a site for entertainment and family shows, university events, community events, etc. We need to keep this building busy as many days a year as we possibly can. It can't be just for, you know, our Sun Devil athletic events. We need that to be financially successful here. This is about a $115 million investment, but we think it's a tremendous asset for the community and for the university and for our students. And as President Crow likes to point out, this sort of fills a spot for us. You know, we have venues for relatively modest sized meetings, the size of this one. We have venues for 14,000 people, that being Desert Financial Arena. We can pack 55 to 60,000 people into Sun Devil Stadium, but this fills that gap that we have. If you want to have, you know, an event with up to 5,000 people, this is your place. So we'll be able to do all of that now, you know, within the Tempe campus area. Next slide, please. This is not without its challenges. Next slide. You know, some of the things that we're working on currently are collaborative efforts around traffic mitigation and pedestrian safety. You know, this is a major urban center, and with that and all the people that we have, you know, the Tempe campus on any given day is a community of 100,000 people all by itself, unless it's a football game day, and then it's a lot more people. And the city of Tempe, of course, is growing and changing as well. And so, you know, one of our challenges is how do we make sure that the transportation infrastructure sort of keeps pace with that? So these are various things that we're doing that fall into 2 categories. One is our institutional efforts. Those are things that we can do with the university acting directly itself. And you see that we have made and planned various dedications. This is the university dedicating its land to the city, you know, for better traffic mitigation measures, rights of way, additional traffic lanes, bus bays. You know, we built this community around the idea that there will be mass transit serving it, not only buses, but also the light rail that runs through the campus and has 2 stops. We're adding space for additional traffic signals as necessary, the pedestrian bridge I mentioned, maybe more of those to come later. And then there are things that we're doing collaboratively. You know, we're not a municipality. And so we work with the city of Tempe on the Novus Innovation Corridor, much the way we do with the city of Phoenix downtown and Mesa on the Poly campus, et cetera. But there are a number of things that have to change, you know, as this area densifies and there's more population. You see some of those here. Most of these then are going to require us to work either with the city or with the city and the state. There is the Metropolitan Area Government Forum here, and that is a structure that is used for making a lot of those investments. There are resources available to MAG as a part of that. What we're doing is we're trying to make sure that those are on the map in terms of the planning. So we're working with the city to make sure that we have 2 things, that we have feasibility studies on all of these ideas and that we know what they would cost if they are feasible. So we're getting in line and you know, working with everybody else and trying to make the case for these investments. And when you have a major economic generator the way we do here, I think there is a good investment case, but of course, we're not the only people trying to make that case. So we're trying to make sure that we're prepared to do that well. Next slide. Also, you know, we know that this is cyclical. You know, we are, you know, we can, you know, make facilities available, opportunities available, but we are subject to a market that is far bigger than are we. And so we know there'll be cycles in that market, even with the pandemic. Right now, things are pretty good. And so we're trying to maintain our momentum while things are good, but we know that there will be a down cycle as well. A lot of speculation out there right now, of course, about will everyone come back to the office? Or will most people come back to the office? And what does that mean for some of these things? And as you would imagine, we're watching those things closely. There are various things in there we're doing to try to sort of mitigate our risk as we do that. We have a great partner in Catellus Development Corporation that's helping us with a lot of that. And of course, they are providing capital to make a lot of these upfront investments as well. And then finally, something that President Crow often reminds us of is that we will not be successful unless we create a place where other organizations want to partner with us. And so, finding either existing organizations, ways to partner with them that cause them to say, look, yeah, we should co-locate with Arizona State University. There's tremendous benefit to us to do so. And then identifying new potential partners as well. So those are all things that we're working on there. We are working with Cushman and Wakefield on a strategy that will be a little bit more of an outreach approach. Some of you who are familiar with various economic development efforts know that we have great partners in ACA and GPEC and others. But once Company A has decided that, well, we're going to locate this new facility someplace, as John likes to call it, it's a race for the bottom. It's like, well, how much money will you give us to locate here? And how little, will you charge us to be here? And when you get in that race, we're not best positioned to compete with some of the competitors that we have to compete with out there, just in terms of resources they have available. We have a different philosophy in the state of Arizona, but we have a tremendous value proposition. And one of the biggest differentiators we have, of course, is Arizona State University. And so convincing people that is a major part of the value proposition is what we're working on. Next slide, please. So others are starting to notice. So we forgive us for throwing in this brag slide, but the individual projects within Novus are receiving awards, best office project, talk of the town in terms of our first Class A commercial office building from NAIOP, and then the actual development itself is also receiving some notice, and that's the next slide, I think. Yes, there it is. So I mentioned sustainability earlier. We actually worked with the U.S. Green Building Council, which is the entity that sort of is the certifying entity for green buildings in the U.S. And they created a category that we actually worked with them to sort of help develop, which is a LEED ND certification, which means the actual neighborhood development. And we are one of the first LEED ND communities in the country, and the first one in the state of Arizona. What that means is that a developer will actually start with a certain number of points towards a LEED certification that they get for locating in Novus because of these attributes that I've mentioned. So we're excited about that. We're at least silver and usually exceeding that on our private developments that were there. A lot of people in the commercial real estate world told us, oh, that'll never work. You can't do that. Nobody will pay for it. Well, so far it's going okay. Maybe that will change, but we've been successful thus far. The connected community I mentioned, infrastructure in place. We have rights, to air for the ability to use various types of line of sight or other types of technologies that we think will be important for communication and collaboration in the future. Next slide, please. So this is a summary, and so several of the folks who work with John and his team on Novus are in the room. It's a kind of a big challenge that President Crow has set in front of us here, but with a lot of people's help across the university, things are going well. We have local, regional, and national developers now that are all involved, various institutional partners that are involved in terms of attracting those partnerships. Novus being a primary example. We hope to have Zoom announcing location here in the foreseeable future. There are others. We're billing assessments, so that part of the model is working. That's a annual revenue stream that will...
A Zoom tech center, 500 people.
The assessments are being placed. We've had 2 years now. Yes, people are actually paying them as planned, which means that as long as those leases exist, we'll have an annual revenue stream. We've had institutional investors acquiring projects. The Hyatt Dual Flag Hotel was sold to a national hospitality REIT. The 777 Tower was sold to a consortium of a private equity investment firm and a second real estate investment firm out of San Diego. They're in that business all day long, every day at a national level. And so to have them, put their money down here for projects in Novus is sort of reinforcing. And then, of course, we're also building these athletic venues. So next slide, if you would, please. I'm going to stop. That's a lot, I know, but it's not without its challenging moments, but we think that we're kind of hitting the stride with Novus here, and I'll be happy to answer questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, and John, So any questions or comments? This was for informational only. Yes, Regent Penley.
Thank you, Chair Mata. I would just like to applaud what ASU is doing with the Novus corridor area. It fulfills the legislative intent that was designed to provide support for athletics through a special district. It also fulfills what this board has called for from our three universities and what Governor Ducey has called for from our three universities, and that is entrepreneurship and creativity in generating the kind of revenue that's necessary, given state support, which is quite limited, to support our Arizona students in their desire to obtain higher education, and this board's goal of increasing the attainment in the state of Arizona. So I laud what you're doing, and I applaud the fact that you're doing so consistent with the intent of legislation, our governor, and what this board has requested of you.
Thank you. Regent Shupman?
I'd just like to add to Regent Penley's comments by just thanking you for the diligence and hard work and extra effort that's required to do what you're doing. Had you had adequate funding from other sources, this might not have happened. And that would have been a shame for this state. As regents, one of our roles is to tell the story of the value of our institutions to the state more broadly, to the people who live here, and to emphasize to them that not only do we prepare the next upcoming folks that will work in the state and live in the state, but also to contribute to its quality of life and to its economic vibrance. And this development does that. I was driving down the 202 last night and looking over toward Tempe with everything lit up. It's fantastic. It's just simply fantastic. So thank you all for everybody that has something to do with this. Well done.
Any other question or comment? Regent Raido?
Quick question. I again want to congratulate you and ASU for the wonderful achievements you've done with this project. Would you comment on the taxes and the in lieu taxes, and that it's more than just revenue to Arizona State University?
Sure. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, that's absolutely right. There are sort of two components to the economic impact to the university, direct ones. The first, of course, is the long-term ground leases in Novus. So typically those are prepaid. So it's almost the equivalent of the sale, except for the fact that at the end of the ground lease, everything, reverts to us, building and ground. And then the annual assessments, which are in lieu of property tax, rather than just say to folks, well, congratulations, you happen to have built on, tax exempt land under the Arizona Constitution. We actually monetize that. So that's the annual revenue stream that I mentioned earlier. So those are direct impacts to the university, not to mention, so for example, the State Farm Foundation, charitable foundation, made a gift to the university of about $32 million roughly a year ago, where we are working with them on job development and upskilling. And so there's also that third, less predictable, but certainly real impact as well to the university. But then beyond that, the companies who locate here, of course, have employees. who they're paying, and then they pay, various types of taxes, income, property, et cetera. And all of their activity is multiplied. One of the things that we're working on right now is doing sort of a meta-analysis of the economic impact of the ASU enterprise. We have one for multiple of our innovation zones, so the Research Park in South Tempe, SkySong, ASU proper, et cetera. But we're going to put those all together along with one for Novus and our other innovation zones to sort of get a look at the totality. And that number, I don't know exactly what it will be, but my guess is it'll be pushing 10 billion annually, when we do that.
So just to take that from the top then, so there's ownership of the land continues. We own all the buildings that other people pay for when their financial track is done. We're paid for the ground lease and we secure the payments for in lieu of taxes. So 4 financial returns to the university. And in addition to that are then the relationships such as the State Farm relationship philanthropically, the Infosys relationship, which is a research and learning and technology oriented relationship. So there are multiple levels of these relationships that then pay out for us. And then to our students and our faculty, there's more opportunities for internships, research connections, learning connections, teaching connections. All of these things will build these companies and these relationships with the university, for which there is very limited financial risk since we're not investing our own money for these projects. We're using the land that we have as an asset in a very, very creative way. So that's the sort of summary from the top.
Thank you. Any other question or comments? Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll move to the next item, number 8, and this will be presented by Lisa Rolney from University of Arizona. Item number 8 is a request from U of A to enter into a ground lease with the City of Phoenix for Clearway Energy to construct a central chill water plant for the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. Thank you, Lisa. Welcome.
Thank you,
Back
Chair
again.
Mata. Regents, that's hard act to follow. This isn't quite as exciting, but it is very important to our success at the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. So next slide, please. The City of Phoenix and the University of Arizona entered into an IGA on February 5th, 2004. And since then, we've entered into 5 amendments. The 5th amendment gives us the opportunity to lease and or purchase certain vacant or improved real property owned by the city and located within the Phoenix Biomedical Campus, consistent with the City of Phoenix downtown area redevelopment and improvement plan. You can see the location of the PBC in the red box on this slide. Pursuant to the IGA, the PBC has been developed to include various educational and research facilities, including the Health Sciences Education Building and the Biosciences Partnership Building. We currently contract with Clearway Energy to provide chilled water for cooling and research purposes for each of our buildings at the PBC. Clearway is nearing its capacity within its current system and needs additional capacity in order to serve future buildings within the PBC and nearby development in downtown Phoenix. We seek to enter into a ground lease with the City of Phoenix for an approximately 12,000 square foot parcel of land adjacent to an existing APS facility. Next slide, please. A depiction of the proposed ground lease site and the chilled water plant is seen on this slide. The parcel is currently vacant, as it's always been intended to be used for just such a facility since the time the parking garage was constructed. You can see the parking garage just to the left of the red box on the Google Maps. The parcel will then be leased to Clearway for construction of chilled water plant. The 30-year terms of this ground lease will be the same terms as all the other ground leases with the City of Phoenix within PBC, as set forth by that 5th amendment of the IGA. In connection with this lease transaction, we'll enter into a master agreement with Clearway to provide chilled water to current and future U of A buildings at rates and on terms that are significantly more favorable than provided under the current contract with Clearway. We'll be bringing this master agreement to the board once the necessary approvals are made today and later this month at the board meeting, and then soon after by the Phoenix City Council. I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing no hands, I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval the University of Arizona request to enter into a ground lease with the City of Phoenix, on which the university will enter into a contract with Clearway Energy to construct a central chilled water plant to serve the Phoenix Biomedical Campus, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's carries. Item number 9, we're gonna have Lisa back again, she's there. So this is the review, a request from University of Arizona to enter into a lease amendment with the town of Gilbert for their nursing program. Lisa, you can present.
Thank you, Chair Mata. Regents, next slide, please. We entered into a lease on February 8th of 2019 with the town of Gilbert on the 3rd floor of a building located at 92 West Vaughn Avenue in Gilbert. You can see the location of that building on this slide. The lease included 15,448 square feet of improved area and 2,218 square feet of unimproved shell space. We currently offer our Bachelor of Science in Nursing program in this location. The original lease was for a term of 3 years and 7 months with 3 additional 1-year extension. Our base rent was about $485,000 per year, $30 a square foot for the improved space, and just under $10 a square foot for the shell space. Therefore, board approval was not required for the original lease under ABOR Policy 7-207. Next slide, please. Here you can see that building close up. Due to our excellent partnership with the town of Gilbert, along with the success that we've seen with our undergraduate program nursing there, this location is becoming the hub for our nursing programs in Phoenix. We plan to relocate our Master of Nursing program, which is currently at the PBC, to this location, which will allow us to expand and better integrate the programs. To accommodate growth of these programs, build out of the shell space on the 4th floor is in the design phase, and timeline for completion of that project is summer, and we'll be ready to welcome the first cohort of the master's program in fall of 22. To advance our efforts in integrating the programs, the town of Gilbert agreed to construct improvements to the 2,218 square feet of shell space on the 3rd floor in exchange for extending the lease to recover the cost of the improvements. The additional space accommodates a high-tech control room and 2 new clinical simulation rooms. Tenant improvements were completed in time for us to welcoming our incoming graduate class. The base rent for the new improved space will increase to match the rate of the already improved 15,000 square feet, so it'll be $30 a square foot. And the base rent under the lease is inclusive of all common area maintenance and operations changes and will be responsible only for rental taxes, if any, that are imposed. Again, as excellent partners, the town agreed to amortize the improvements over the life of the lease extension with 0% interest. So the first amendment to the lease had an expansion effective date of July 1st, 2021, with an initial term following the expansion effective date of 6 years and 3 months through September 30th, 2027. I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? I don't see any hands, so we'll move this. I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval and ratification the University of Arizona request to amend their lease with the town of Gilbert for their nursing program as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa. Item number 10. Item number 10 will be presented by Lorenzo from ABOR, and is the board office asked the committee to review for consideration on first reading the proposed new ABOR policy 1-125 for affiliated entities. Lorenzo, you have the step.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regents, currently the board has existing guidelines that are related to university relationships with component unit affiliates. What the proposed policy does is convert those guidelines to board policy. In addition, the board recently underwent its sunset audit by the State Auditor General. As part of that audit, the Auditor General looked at these relationships that universities have with these affiliated entities and developed some recommendations. So part of this proposal also sort of expands and establishes new requirements related to these guidelines. They speak to requirements that these agreements should have, as well as clarify and expand on the oversight responsibilities of the universities with the affiliated entities. In addition, these agreements are required to be reviewed at least every 5 years. The agreements are required to be submitted to the board chair, the executive director, and general counsel. And then there are other requirements related to documenting the value of resource exchanges between these entities. And finally, there's a requirement that universities report to this committee on the relationships with these affiliated entities. With that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Don't see any hand. Okay, I move that the committee forward to the full board for approval on first reading the proposed new ABOR policy 1-125, oversight of the university relationships with component unit affiliates and the incorporation and repeal of the guidelines governing the relationships between component unit affiliates and universities under the jurisdiction of the Arizona Board of Regents as described in the executive summary. If there is a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. This concludes the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee meeting. Thank you.